feel like Gordon Bombay would have taken his career to even further heights. Everything's flashy, everything's cocaine, everything's fun.
Open wide for some soccer.
I don't care what you think about what your personal thoughts are at home. I care that you hate the Cowboys.
Call this college rule.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Sports Experience Podcast. Dom and Chris here, and before we begin, as always, make sure you follow us on social medias. You know, do the thing with the following the thing, and subscribe to us on all platforms. We're there on all podcasts and at the Sports Experience on Instagram because, you know, looking at those numbers and listening and judging by the numbers, you haven't. Let's pump them up. Come on.
Today we are back, and I'll be. Didn't we get this as a suggestion?
We got this as a suggestion from our buddy Astrostar.
Yeah, so thank you for that. Today we're talking about pretty much the 93 Oilers, the build up to them, and pretty much the collapse of a franchise, if you will.
Yeah, it was like a decade of just nothing, and then here we go.
Yes.
We'll get into it. We'll get into it now. They made 2 consecutive AFC Championship games in 78 and 79. And then in 1980, they made the playoffs again, but lost to the Raiders. And they fired their head coach, Bum Phillips, and they just bottomed out for like the next 5 years. Just completely. They had guys named Manning and Luck starting at quarterback. Not the good ones.
That's right.
The crappy ones. They were crappy.
Well, they were, in this era in the 80s, one of the worst teams, and then they kind of build a team going into the late 80s.
Yeah, because they're picking so high. So they're picking like guys who are in the NFL Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Like
Pro Bowls.
Pro Bowls, too. Like offensive linemen, Bruce Matthews and Mike Munchak are in these drafts near the top. And in 1984, they get the NFL's first real free agent. You see anything about that? With Warren Moon? Coming down from Canada, needing a job. They hired his coach from Edmonton just so he would come. Yeah.
Yeah, so he would agree to become their quarterback.
He won 5 Grey Cups.
I was just going to say, because he really was their quarterback for a long-ass time. And you think about it as, like, in Houston, pretty much this first free agent coming through, it is a big deal for this franchise.
Oh, it's a huge, even though they continue to be kind of crappy for the next couple of seasons. But defensive coordinator Jerry Glanville steps in towards the end of 85. And then by 87, he has the Oilers finally back in the playoffs. First time in 7 years. That's pretty crazy. That year was a strike year, and they have the run-and-shoot offense with Warren Moon, and they become one of the league's best at throwing the ball down the field. We'll get into how sometimes that type of offense doesn't work.
Well, it's a very exciting offense, but you're right. It has holes in it. You know, it's not a solid offense, and you know, maybe your defensive coordinator later on doesn't like it very much. We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah.
So they end up losing to the Broncos.
In 87, yeah.
87.
They beat the Seahawks, but then it's like, oh, man, we got good things ahead for 88. And then, well, unfortunately, they win 10 games and make the playoffs, but they're the lowest seeded wild card.
Yeah.
Yeah. So back in those days, they do beat Cleveland because, you know, that's what teams tend to do in the postseason. And, well, then they basically get the crap beat out of them by Buffalo. They never play them again, though, Chris. They never do. They never do. There's no more games scheduled.
They never see the Bills.
They never see the Bills. So 3 straight years in the playoffs. You can't get past the divisional round. And then 1989 happens, and my God, this is not good. This is not good. They should have probably won the division over the Browns, but they have to settle for the final wild card.
Again, that's
they weren't the last wild card.
But yes,
they had to have a home game, and they played Pittsburgh, who was arguably the worst playoff team to have ever existed under that 5-team format ever, and they lose on an overtime field goal.
I was just gonna say they get humiliated because everybody was picking them to go through. This is the start of when you start to see the Oilers fan base start to be like, okay, we should be winning at least like a couple of these going in.
Dude, they have like in some of these seasons like 8 to 9 Pro Bowlers on their roster.
Yes,
and you're
exactly.
just like, what are you doing? Just what are you doing?
And you could just see it's almost like dysfunction from the top.
Yeah.
You know, because obviously they have like an unbelievable roster of talent. It's just can't get it together, especially in the playoffs.
You have 4 incredible receivers with Haywood Jeffries, Ernest Givens, Curtis Duncan, and Drew Hill. And you're telling me you can't get past the divisional round?
And Warren Moon, who is,
most passing yards ever if you count Canada.
Yeah, which we don't.
Which, sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Just
That's
depends on how
right.
our argument is.
You're right.
Like,
Depends if I'm having pancakes or not.
Yeah, what's the exchange rate for a number of Grey Cups to a Super Bowl? I say 3. God damn it, Dominic. Anyway,
so
Jerry Glanville, their head coach, loses his job. He loses his job after the 89 season. And then in 1990, Moon has 33 touchdowns. He throws for over 500 yards in one of the games this year. That's how dope he was and how great that offense was.
And how exciting it was because there weren't offenses like this that were just absolutely putting up video game style numbers. You know what I mean?
June Jones and the Red Gun, and then Kevin Gilbride is in 1990 for them, and they're slinging it around even more.
Yep.
And they make the playoffs again, but still a wild card. Mind you, they have not won a division since the NFL merger.
It's pretty brutal.
And they absolutely get throttled in the playoffs by the Bengals. It was a sad game. Not as bad as the one the year before where
they should have won.
No.
Oh.
It's the Bengals. We're at Riverfront where Sam White called a timeout just to kick a field goal to make it 61-7.
Oh,
because he hated Jerry Glanville.
He hated him that much. Yes.
So, anyway, 1991 for the Oilers. For the first time, they won an AFC Central title. Best offense in the league. I mean, everything's coming up Oilers.
I was just going to say, everything's starting to click. Everybody's starting to be like, okay, we saw them kind of lose, but 91 is, and you see this kind of going forward where they're like not necessarily picked for the Super Bowl, but they're like, all right, this is a playoff team without a doubt.
And they go to Denver. We mentioned this in one of our previous episodes. They go there. They're up big in the first half. They're up 14-0, like right out the gate. And then 2-4, and this is a harbinger of things to come, Chris. 2 fourth down conversions to John Elway to where they can kick the winning field goal.
And just them going ahead early and really slacking off later. That's like almost like a hallmark to this team. And I remember one of the guys said that. It was just like, I hate that so much because they literally will go up early in these games, first half, and then we're going to see it coming up, and just teams just come back on them.
Yeah. So 92, you won the division. Things are going to look up your way that year, and they don't. They fuck up 2 huge games against the Steelers to cost them not only the division, but the 1 seed in the entire. They would have had to play all the games at the Astrodome.
Yep.
So what ends up happening in their last regular season game, though, Buffalo comes to Houston and they kick the crap out of them. So they prevent Buffalo from winning the AFC East, but they still have to go to Buffalo for the AFC wildcard game. And for the first half, you got to see how awesome the run and shoot was when you could just operate it. Like you didn't have any lulls. All of your red zone drives worked. All of your receivers and quarterback were in sync on routes like mid-play. 35-3 the beginning.
And
of the third quarter.
This is one of those interesting ones where it really is such a tale of two halves, where in the first half you're like, oh, this is how this offense works.
Yeah.
And then in the next half you're like, oh, this is how the Bills defense works.
Yeah. Jim Kelly's not even in. Thurman Thomas isn't in. They had a popcorn guy playing defensive back.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. They
So
lose in overtime.
Bills, I was going to say, come back in, for the time, the biggest comeback in playoff history, where...
It's still the biggest one.
Is it still
Yeah,
okay.
in playoff, yeah. Uh-huh.
In playoff, okay. Yeah. And they were talking about it. They're like, obviously there needs to almost be a change going into this next season.
Right.
There was not any kind of coordination from top to bottom as to what change that was. It was just like, you know what? We're just going to throw shit against the wall and see what sticks. We're just going to see what sticks.
By this point, by 93, Bud Adams, the owner, had been trying to work with Houston to either get more upgrades to the Astrodome or have a new separate facility entirely.
And I saw this where he wanted it to be almost a shared facility with the Rockets, which is smart because they're in the off seasons, and like what he was suggesting is pretty much what they have now. But like for whatever reason, they were like, I don't know about that. Like it was.
Well, watching Frank Reich carve your team like a Thanksgiving turkey when it matters, maybe I don't want that bond measure to pass.
Yes. So,
but he had said, because the salary cap, and we brought that up, listen to our free agency episode.
Yep.
Because the salary cap was coming in 1994. He basically told the team, hey, not all of you are coming back. In fact, most of you aren't coming back. We can't afford you.
We're hoping to be bad enough to relocate to Miami. This guy's dead. Cross him off then.
Who is he?
But that's the thing. This is the thing that I really wanted to emphasize was going into this 93 season, they were a unbelievably talented team. They weren't like Major League where they were a bunch of guys that were like actually bad. They were like other teams were like, oh, they're. I think they were actually being picked to
go to the Super Bowl. Yes. Yeah, I mean, and head coach Jack Party made the team better after Glanville left.
Yes.
With his bravado and all that nonsense. But they say, hey, let's not hunker down and get our shit together. Let's put the most toxic person into this entire equation and see what happens on a group full of rowdy, insane people.
So the head coach is literally being interviewed, and they stop the interview, and they're just like, just to report, we do have an announcement that the new defensive coordinator for the Oilers will be Buddy Ryan. And you can see on his face like, what the
It's like in Dumb and Dumber where Harry's on the toilet and she's like, oh, I hope you're not using the toilet. It doesn't flush. And it goes, do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. That's exactly what his face looked like.
Because it is very... Obviously, he doesn't want him coming in. Obviously, Buddy Ryan is an unbelievably... amazing defensive coach.
You have to fire your defensive coordinator after 35-3. Yeah, I mean...
Yeah.
It sucks.
Nope.
I mean, he gave him years of service, but like after that, it's like, okay, well, you did what you didn't need to do. You're fired.
So Buddy Ryan comes in and pretty much does what he did at the Bears,
which is awesome. And music videos.
Make it. You know what? You're right. I was wrong. I was going to talk shit on Buddy Ryan, and he was the director of that. So you're right.
No.
But he came in and pretty much made one team, two teams. That he was like notorious for this.
And it's not like his players weren't scheme versatile. They had played 3-4 and 4-3 all throughout. They're the only team heading into 93 to make the playoffs 6 straight seasons in the NFL.
Yep.
Teams won Super Bowls and then maybe had an off year. The Oilers always had one of those on years that just went off the goddamn off ramp.
Bill Belichick, I saw, had a quote where he was just like, yeah, it was one of the most talented group of guys I've ever seen. Where you like, this is what everybody's saying. It was just like, this is where they're going to break through. And you wonder if they didn't throw this cat in a bag, what would they have been? Because Buddy comes in and he's just like, all right, we want fights every single day.
And I mean,
it's wild.
It's insane. And it's more or less like just going, hey, I just put a cat in the wall. Let me just feel around with some Cheeto fingers.
That's right.
That's right.
You know what gets a cat out of a wall? The cat in a wall.
Bird.
Put a bird in there? Come on, D.
Oh, I'm not allowed to eat the skin. See? So anyway, 93, they're picked as the AFC's the favorite to make the Super Bowl. So I picked them for the Super Bowl, and they start horrendously this season. Horrendously.
I was just gonna say they really, and this is what the feeling was they were never a team.
No.
You know what I mean? Like when Buddy came in, it was like defense versus offense. And I saw one, I don't think it was Warren Moon, but somebody said it was like, it was literally Oilers versus Oilers. More so than us versus whoever, that Raiders, whoever they were playing, it was like us versus us every single time was almost more important.
What's funny is Brian would refer to the run and shoot as the chuck and duck. But Warren Moon said every time in practice, that is the specific offense that destroys the 46.
Yes.
Like, as long as your quarterback isn't mauled to death, open guys everywhere. So he's like, I don't know how he didn't have respect for us. We killed him in practice every day.
Well, I think that was more of the anger, was he was like, it really tore his defense up because he came up with this defense and he could almost look at it like, oh, if this is the future of the NFL, my defense is going to get shredded. Yeah. And like you were saying, he called it, and he would just constantly make jabs like that about the offense.
But it's like, this is where the NFL is going. It's like 10, 15 years ahead of where it eventually became. But still, like, you could see, man, as long as you have 4 good route running receivers who are quick, as long as you have a larger running back to take advantage of those non-stacked boxes and any sort of blocking, really your only fear is converting in the red zone, just in the limited windows of spaces.
Yep.
Like, but you see 4 wide on almost every game. Mm-hmm. Almost every team runs that. So
yeah. So we're going into it.
How do they start?
They get annihilated by who? I forgot.
I mean, they got the shit kicked out of them by the Saints.
By the Saints.
First week.
And then they play the Chiefs.
Who do not have
this is what I wanted to bring up.
Quarterback. The Chiefs are starting Dave Craig.
A 47-year-old.
Dave Craig finished filing out his Social Security paperwork and then went to play at the Astrodome in week 2 and then had some Werther's Originals at halftime.
Joe Montana is the Chiefs QB at this time. He's sitting out. They have their backup. Oilers look like everybody's saying it because they're like, week 1 was a hiccup. They looked like everything was clicking. And boy, was it not.
Oh, it started going straight to hell. Mm-hmm. They shut them out 30-0. But then they go to San Diego and they lose. And then they play the Rams and they lose. They started 1-4 overall this season.
So, and this is the thing that I feel like when you look at this season is the defense really clicks after this, but the dysfunction never goes away.
Oh, the dysfunction never. Number one, Warren Moon gets benched.
Yep.
Leading into their
6th game.
Yeah, 6th game against New England. His backup Cody Carlson, he actually got them to the playoffs in '89.
Yep.
By 1990 by beating the Steelers in the last week. So, and I think he was at the time the highest paid backup. So you're thinking like, oh, here comes a jump start, and then he proceeds to get hurt.
Yep.
And Moon goes back in.
He pulls his muscle or something. So Moon comes back in, and there's a feeling of like, okay, now our starter's back. Almost like a feeling of responsibility that I felt like wasn't there.
But it just keeps getting weird. And not the good kind of weird, Chris. The bad kind of weird.
Yep, the pissing in helmets kind of weird.
Hey, look over there weird. Their offensive tackle got criticized by his owner for attending the birth of his first child.
Okay, so we can talk about this one because Warren Moon comes back. They end up winning, and this should be the narrative that's going on. You know what I mean?
Like, if they were a united team, they would just be like, all right, how many more of these do we have?
Yes.
Let's get back into the AFC Central race.
What the big story was this guy going to have to be with his wife during the birth of his first child.
David Williams,
and not coming back to the game. The only thing I have to say, because this isn't even like a controversy now.
No.
It's the only thing that I agreed with what the team said was we gave him off practice, all of the meetings, just because he said he was going to be at the game.
That's a dick. Oh, that's a dick move.
And then it was very much where they were like, this was set up as like the kid was born. And then he was just like, you know what, guys, I am going to stay for this week. And then
his wife had a little inside baseball for him. Like, honey, take the week off. You earned it.
And this is what further divided the locker room, because a lot of the guys in the locker room were like, nah, fuck that. He should stay. And other guys were like, we're here.
Yeah.
And like,
we're here. My 3 illegitimate kids are somewhere else.
Exactly.
We're here.
Warren Moon even said,
wives?
McGriff always falls. But Warren Moon even said he was just like, I had a kid born mid-season and I made it to that game. And you're just like, all right, buddy. But, you know.
Yeah, but you know what, man? You know what Warren Moon is more than anything else? Fucking professional. That's how it's done. There was also the controversy with Well, the tragic controversy. So they're on a roll. They just start reeling off wins.
They're now the Buddy Ryan's defense is clicking. Their offense has kind of always been clicking, but it is more of like a well-oiled machine.
They're winning out of spite and dysfunction.
Oh, man.
Yeah, like it's pretty crazy.
I like that. They're winning out of spite. You can't return this out of spite.
You can't return this out of spite. Don't say revenge. Don't say revenge. So on December 14th, 1993, their backup defensive tackle, Jeff Alm, got in a car accident that killed his friend.
Did you see the thing that happened before? So the
Spencer Tillman one? Yeah. Uh-huh.
So this is the thing. It wasn't like I saw this thing that wasn't like this was an isolated fight. Like fights were happening. If a fight didn't happen on a day, they would be like, whoa, that's kind of... And they were saying this, too, because obviously these guys had been on multiple teams. They had been professionals for multiple years. They were like, I had never seen fights like this. And it also was
And they were vicious. And they were vicious between dudes who probably just didn't fight at all before or since then.
Because it was that's what they said. It was like literally crazy in there. And it also wasn't guys, because sometimes it's guys who are like fighting for the same position.
Yeah.
It was literally always offense versus defense, and this was one of them where
it's like, hey, you want to go to lunch today? Nah, fuck your mother.
Exactly. It was crazy. So these two guys got into a fight.
Jeff Alm and Spencer Tillman.
And Spencer Tillman said, like obviously you just say a bunch of shit like after the fight, and you just go something really bad's gonna happen to him or something like that, where you're like, did he just curse this man? Did he just like...
Did he say,
hold up
your bucket, Jobu? Because
yes.
I'm a little bit curious on that myself.
No, seriously. Hey, bartender, Jobu needs a refill. That's... So...
He gets this DUI, vehicular manslaughter, and, before the cops can get... Because he calls the cops. Very distraught, disoriented.
He killed his friend. He kind of like crashed on a bridge, and his friend went over the side and died on impact. Pulls a gun out and kills himself.
Yeah, shotgun. Right to the dome. Yep. And you'd think of any team this would destroy, but it doesn't, Chris. They keep
why?
Fighting back.
It smells like team spirit. So they come in. Whew, and they're on a 11-game win streak at this time, or is it 10?
Well, I think they're on like an 8-game win streak.
Okay, when this happens.
This is when they beat Pittsburgh the following week to win the division.
Okay.
So they won the division again. Yep. And because of their 11 straight wins to finish the regular season, they're the 2 seed. They get a first-round bye.
That's right.
In the playoffs there in 1993. But something happens in their last game against the Jets this season, which, well, just kind of embodies the dysfunction felt all year.
I was just going to say, it is such an embodiment of this team season. End of the first half, they think they're going to... Oilers have the ball. They think they're going to
just run out the clock. Just run out the clock. You have a lead. You're deep in your own territory. Just like, hey, this is 1993. We're going to do it.
It's 1993. We're going to do it.
Strategic.
They decide not to do this and run a passing play,
which results in
a fumble.
Mm-hmm.
And
which the Jets get. Good for the Jets.
Jets take it back. Man, does Buddy Ryan flip out, because... And this is the dysfunction, because you can have all the talent in the world, but if you're not...
He had been pissed all year because there were times where the offense was very, too casual with the ball,
yes.
and times they didn't need to be, that when the defense was sent back out there, he lost some starters. Mind you, this is the hottest team in the NFL at this point. I mean, they've rolled through everybody in the last 11 weeks. And then to have this happened is kind of just ridiculous.
But this is what I mean with the dysfunction within the group, where if you had like one cohesive like game plan, you would have ran down the clock, because he would have been like, yo, we're not sending the defense back out there. You know what I mean? Where it's like, if everybody was on the same page, which they just weren't at one point at all throughout the season. So they end up giving up a fumble. Buddy Ryan starts to freak out.
Chris, can I just ask, whatever happened to the old days when you could just calmly go to someone who made a mistake? What was that douche nozzle? And then just walk away, because they understood it.
That's true.
They understood it. No, this team had more fights than a 1998 episode of Jerry Springer. That's what they had. And Buddy decides, fuck it. Players can fight. Why not coaches?
That's what I want to see.
Old men doing things is hilarious.
It's also kind of funny when you see it because you realize how insane Buddy Ryan is, because he is just talking shit. And what's the offensive coordinator's name?
Kevin Gilbride.
Kevin Gilbride literally walks over like, what are you talking about? And without even like,
no,
he literally comes within his range and he just like cocks up not a good punch.
No.
Like, I don't think Buddy Ryan's punched before. And
that being said, if it wasn't for Curtis Duncan or Keith McCants right there, Kevin Gilbride, if he wanted to, would have fucked him up.
Literally what everybody says, and if you look at it, you're like, oh yeah, that was somebody that played football against an old man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it literally was like his mustache. Gilbride's mustache would have fucked him up.
His mustache, it wouldn't have even needed a touch buddy. He would have fallen over.
But that's what made it so ridiculously funny, because it was this old man being like, what do you mean you're coming? Yeah. But I also, it is very much this dysfunction where nobody took responsibility above Buddy Ryan to be like, hey, we're going to have this guy apologize to this guy. We're going to get more on the same page. It was more of just like, yeah, that was crazy.
I don't know if you read this, but allegedly they were a very tolerant locker room too. They had alleged 6 gay guys on the team in 1993.
Yeah.
Which, that's pretty progressive if you ask me.
I saw that and I remember thinking, I was just like, is this real? And I don't even know what to say, especially about Houston.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? They're not pro-gay now.
I mean, it's an edgy subject, but you know what, Chris? Winning cures all. Winning cures all.
Yep,
you know,
that's very
winning
true.
Solves all your issues.
3 yards in a cloud of dust, which is 100% not what this offense is doing.
No,
will cure it all.
It will cure it all. It will cure any dysfunction. For that, at least,
that's
not the fighting dysfunction.
Well, Buddy didn't care. Also, this goes back. I just kind of forgot about it early in the season when Buddy kept talking about it being the chuck and dunk, whatever. I messed that up. One of the receivers came out and talked shit.
Oh, Givens, yeah.
And he just goes, I don't even know who that is, which I actually believe he doesn't have any idea who the offensive players on his team are.
What side of the ball you play on? Offense? Yeah, I don't need to know.
I don't know who that guy
is. Okay, hey.
Yeah,
how's the family doing?
I know that guy.
But they win the game against the Jets, and then this could have been the game, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
This could have been the game that saved everything.
Yes. It could have turned a franchise around.
It wouldn't have mattered what happened afterwards. If they won this game, oh boy. But they play a team that they kicked the shit out of earlier this year.
And they're going in with a lot of confidence.
At home, unlike Buffalo the year before on the road.
Exactly. Even though this team has their quarterback back.
Joe Montana. I mean, when you think like sorcery pre-Tom Brady, like a guy will just haunt your dreams and ruin everything, it's this guy.
It's true.
It's true. And they stroll on into Houston looking to play upset. They had won the week before in overtime. You're thinking, oh man, the Oilers got them right where they want them. And they do for most of the game, most of the first half.
For first half, yes.
For the first half, they were fantastic.
I was going to say, for the first half, the defense, whatever the offense was doing, the defense looked like the Chiefs couldn't do anything.
They were number one, beating the shit out of Montana.
Yep.
I mean, some possibly post-whistle, but, it's the 90s.
I was just going to say, that's boys will be boys. What are we talking about here?
Right. But then Willie Davis kept dropping wide open bombs in this game for Kansas City. Like, you could see that they were beating. The guy just wasn't catching the ball. How free this guy was running was kind of a testament to the 46 not being good at pass defense. But they end up going into the second half. They're up 13-7 still after taking a 10-0 lead. And then Kansas City's pass rush shows up.
I was just going to say, and it's such a flip-flop that if the Oilers didn't do this every single season for the past 5 seasons, you'd be like, whoa, what is this? But they are such a first-half team, it's insane.
It's not only that, but Derek Thomas and Neil Smith start getting after Moon. And because the run and shoot doesn't have necessarily the greatest of running games,
there's nothing he can do.
More time and more possession for the Chiefs, and they eventually start finally chipping away. There's a huge touchdown pass to Willie Davis to make it 21-20.
Well, that's
21-13. But then the Oilers come back and actually score to make it 21-20 with like 4 minutes left in the game, which is like, here it is.
Here it is.
Here comes the defense. They're going to do it.
Yep.
They're going to do it. They're within 1 point.
And they don't need a lot of time to score. So it's,
unfortunately. And, well, Marcus Allen takes their soul and scores a touchdown, which in 1993 was the last year. Down 28-20, you couldn't go for 2-point conversions.
Yep. So it literally ends the game. And that's the one of the things that you see on a rule change where you're just like, oh, yeah, they do need that.
But you know what? It wouldn't have mattered because the Oilers got the ball back and Moon got sacked every single time or had to.
I was just
going to
say because their offense just like died in that second half.
Yeah, it just evaporated.
Yep.
Under the pass rush and the lack of a running game, and 7 straight years, 9 Pro Bowlers, multiple of those years, all in the playoffs. Only team in the NFL to do it. And guess what, Chris? Couldn't get past the divisional round.
It's kind of crazy. And then I saw, because in 94, we've obviously talked about it, that's when the salary cap comes in. And one of the front office guys, which I still think is insane, just goes, oh, yeah, we didn't plan for the salary cap whatsoever. So to say that this team that was filled with talent that couldn't do anything exploded the next year is almost an understatement. Like, everybody went somewhere else.
Warren Moon, most notably, went to the Vikings.
Yep.
A couple of years later, dudes were in Jacksonville. I mean, the whole team broke up.
I was just going to say, the entire team went to a different city.
And I did want to mention about that. I don't know if you know anything about the 94 Oilers. They had the worst record in the NFL. Mm-hmm. If it wasn't for Jacksonville and Carolina, they would have had the first pick in the draft. They went from 12 wins to 2.
Yeah, which is insane. That's what
Like they blew they weren't lying. I mean, I give Bud Adams credit. He said, yeah, none of you are coming back.
No.
We didn't really prepare for the salary cap.
I'll tell you what, it really was the Hawks losing against the Ducks.
It was.
Nobody's making the team next year.
Nobody made the team.
Nobody made the team.
And then Fulton accosted him in the sequel in the park.
Oh, man, that was...
Tied him up.
Awesome.
Looking to bully some kids? I don't think so.
I don't think so. Thank you all.
Thank you.